Good morning, everybody. I'm a little bit early, so I figured I managed to get all my bunnies, all my bunny squares completed. So I'm going to, I have the link to the bunny on my shoutouts page on my website now. I did manage to find it, and in one of the Making Granny Square Motifs Pop on my YouTube videos, under Nifty Knots Talk, I go through how to make one of these bunny squares. I'm just going to pin this one together. This isn't what I'm doing today. I'm going to wait for a few more people to join, a few of my regulars to join, and then I'm going to be, that's going to get stuck. I'm going to be finishing up the fish bag that we started yesterday. And it is a smaller version of my crossbody bag. So it's basically a fish that's about the size of a dice bag or a trinket bag. So that's what I'm going to be doing today. Good morning, Janie. I'm actually early today, so I figured I was going to take a few minutes and stitch some of my bunnies done. I got most of my bunnies done. I actually got all my bunnies done. So I'm going to stitch my bunnies, not stitch them together. It takes me about 2 hours to stitch them together for a bag. But I'm going to pin them at least. And then after I pin them, I'm going to jump into making the rest of that fish bag. And we should have time today because I don't have that much left or left to do on the bag. I mean, that I should be able to show you an easy way to line it. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me. I'm just pinning my bunnies together because I'm a little bit early. And these were the bunnies. I have a link to the bunny graph on my web page. And then I have a tutorial on making making motifs pop on granny squares. I have 2 of them in my playlist, Nifty Knots Talk, on YouTube. And I show you how you can manipulate the stitches so that the motifs pop on the outside instead of getting, it's not sewn, it's all crocheted together. But that is, if you go to my link tree, you can go to my website and you can see I have a page for shout outs because it is somebody else's pattern and diagram. So I have a shout outs page, and that page is basically a page with links to other people's patterns that I've used and I've liked, with photos of what I've done with them. I don't have the bunny photo in there just yet because I'm not done with them. I'm putting them all together so that I can make a granny square toad out of it. The pink ears look nice. Thank you. I wasn't too sure, then as soon as I walked in and showed my daughter, I didn't even have to ask. She's like, yes. My daughter came home yesterday and she's like, oh, why is all my yarn all over the place? I'm like, well, I was looking for it. So I have the front half of this. As soon as I get this pinned, I'm going to jump into the fish bags. And I only have a couple more to pin. Because I'd like to get this at least stitched together today. I did finish another one of my regulars. I am going to work on the fish bags. I was just waiting until a couple of you got here, because I know there's a couple of you that follow me, and I do, oh my god, do I appreciate that. So I figured I'd pin this together while I was waiting for you guys to join, and then we're going to finish the fish bag, and hopefully I can show you an easy way to line it. because we just have a little bit more to do on the head and then the eyelet rounds of that fish bag, because it does work up really fast. I'm almost done here. But if I don't get pinned, I'll lose track of where I am. And I just started this because I jumped on a little bit early today. I actually had my crap together. Good morning. Thank you so much for coming back. I appreciate it. I really do. I get to chatter away at somebody in the mornings instead of just sitting here and listening to my dog huff at me, because that's usually what he does. And that's what you'll hear in the background. Okay, 2 more. I know I have my last square over there on my ironing board, but I'm going to pin these couple ones together, and then I'll put this back over there with the last one, and I have the majority of it pinned. But yeah, I can't wait to see this one done. I think, what do you guys think? I'm going to use the gold. I'm going to use the gold to do the stitching. And then I might actually do the green for the handles. I'm not real sure yet. But I only got to finish them yesterday because I had to, because I was lazy. I don't know if any of you guys were here Saturday when I was just chattering away. My local Walmart didn't have the spring green that I wanted. And my local Joann's is about 30 minutes or 30 miles away. So I opted not to drive to Joann's and just ordered on Amazon instead. The couple dollars I spend extra to get it ordered from Amazon makes up for the gas that I would drive 30 miles to get to Joann's. That's like one of those trips that if we have like everything that we need down that way, then we go down that way, and then I can make that trip back from one day. I can't wait to see them finished, but I'm going to put this away and get started on the rest of that fish bag. So, give me 1 second. Put this over here on my ironing board. My last square that I had to glue my ears and eyes on yesterday. Excuse me. I'm so sorry. Okay, so yeah, this is what we're going to be finishing up today. The wrong light on. Let me put the right light on. Close my curtain a little bit so the glare isn't too crazy. So, fish bag. The small one. They're like little dice bags with a drawstring. And yesterday, I should have woven in my ends. I wasn't thinking. I was too excited about finishing my sparkly skull bag and then getting my yarn for my bunny bags. So, just cut that off because I know I stitched over it. This is what we have so far. So we're almost done. If you have problems with your stitches curling, like you can see how that, because it's a single crochet, it kind of has a tendency to curl. You can get a steamer and you can steam it really good. I mean, you can iron it too, but it's going to smash the acrylic in the fabric. So you can get a steamer, and if you just steam them and just give them a little tug, they'll pull out nice and they'll stay that way. So we were, I even have my hook, on round 1, 2, on the second round of the body. So we did all the mesh stitches, and I showed you how I start my mesh stitches on the top of my loops on the top of my loops. So you would end up with like a double, single, or a chain stitch and then a double crochet, and then you end at the top so you can just start your next loop. We did that in yesterday's video. All these videos I do live. I do upload to TikTok. Yesterday, because I talked so much, it took a little bit longer for TikTok to process video and for me to get it uploaded. So I usually stay by late afternoon. I usually have them uploaded. But so this one, we are working on the body. We put our legs together, or our legs, we put our tail fins together, and we just started the body right from the tail fins. And then we made it to round 13. So we did round 10 was round 11 was 3 single crochet and a single crochet, repeat around 40 stitches, don't join. Okay, so that was 11. This is 12. (13) and 14. So we have 3 rounds that we go back loops only. And I use a lot of back loop and front loop in my designs because it adds a little bit of dimension and it adds a little bit of texture to the pattern. And around just the collar, the neck of the fish, before the eyes, I want that little bit of texture. And then I'll do the rest of it. But yeah, so I'm going to finish working around this head here. If anybody has any questions, I'll keep popping my head up to look. But we are making a little dice trinket bag that is going to be a fish. I have to steam my fins yet. Yesterday we did, oh no, I just had them. We did the 2 little fins that are going to be on the side, and we did the 2 big fins. And then the body gets stitched right to the big fin, or crocheted right onto the big fins at the bottom, the tail fins at the bottom. Because I don't like to sew things together. And I'm more than likely, when I make them in bulk, oh, here's my little tail fins. When I make them in bulk, like if I'm going to make a ton of these, I more than likely have all my little fins, and I probably just crochet right over that first round. You can do that as well instead of having to sew them on. Instead of having to sew them on, when you get to this round where you're doing your single crochet over top of your loops to pull the top in a little bit tighter, you can actually take this side fin and put it on one of those side loops and crochet right into it to secure it there. I didn't do that when I was doing this. I was too busy chattering away, so I'll have to stitch them on. I am going to count this next round to make sure I have 40 stitches. Again, I always, when you work like amigurumi and animals and like different toys, you're more times than not you are crocheting in a spiral. You're not joining your rounds. And so you're going to want to keep track of that first stitch, because if you don't, it can be a little bit difficult to find it again when you go back and try to look. Because when you are working in a spiral, your stitches are going to tend to shift. So, you know, just a little bit, not much. Even less when you're only working through a back loop. But they will tend to shift just a little bit to the right. So you'll notice some patterns when you're doing the pattern, it'll say finish the round, and then it'll say single crochet 2 more or whatever, and then mark that as the beginning of your round. That's why, because they have you would have to compensate for that shift in those stitches. But I'm almost done with this part. Good morning, everybody that's joining. We are making a fish dice bag, trinket bag. And I'm almost done with the head here. And let me finish this round and then I will show you the picture. This is one of my patterns that I have on Ravelry. Typically, if you just go to my website and contact me, chances are I'll just send you the pattern. So you can either buy it on Ravelry or you can go to my website and contact me and ask me for it. And chances are I'll just send it to you. But this is the bag. My printer was dying, so I've got a blob of ink on there. More of the bags. And depending on what size yarn you use, it's going to be how big you end up with your bag. One bag in the middle that I have here in the picture, it's the same bag. It's the same bag. It's the same stitch count. I have them all lined up. They were all a little bit different yarns. And thank you for all the likes. They were all a little bit different yarns, but the one in the middle that was bigger was like this really chunky, it was supposed to be worsted weight, but it ended up being really chunky, chunkier than normal worsted weight yarn. It was recycled silk, so it was like all woven together and it was really bulky. But it was like this really pretty rainbow color. Good morning. You haven't missed much. We're still working on those back loop rows here. I think I just did the last one. 1, 2, 3. I just did the last one. So now we're just going to go up to the rest of the head. And I should be able to get this one done. Show you how I put the eyes on them, which I've done in other videos. I love to see you guys. There's quite a few of you guys here. Makes me happy. Good morning. But yeah, I'm going to finish going around the head here, which is 2, 3, 4 more rounds. And since I know I want to do 4 more rounds, I'm going to leave my stitch marker here, and I'll just count up my rounds from there, and I'll show you how it shifts a little bit. Thank you for all the likes. Good morning. We are making a trinket bag that is shaped like a fish. So it's going to have a drawstring at the top, and when it draws close, it'll look like a fish. Good morning. And I should have time to show you how you can like quickly line something like this as well. I have my fabric here that I had bought a couple months ago that I made like pyramid pouches out of, and some zipper pouches out of. So I thought that might be appropriate. And the back of it, I mean, you will see the back of it, but through the mesh. But it's typically I would use something solid, but I don't really have anything solid. But this is a lighter color, and so I thought, well, you know what? Even when you put it in the mesh, it might look like the scales are like rainbowy. So I thought maybe I would just use that to show you how I would line this bag. An easy way to line this bag. And I'm just going to work these 4, did I say 4 rounds? Yeah, 4 rounds. So I'm almost done with one. This is only 4 stitches around, or 40 stitches around. I do need to count because it's going to make a difference for my drawstring. But yeah, it only, when I sit down and I start to do this one, thank you, it usually only takes me about 20 or 30 minutes to make one from beginning to end. So once I do the pattern, my mother always says, I don't understand how you can do that. And once I read through the pattern, and that's why I do things in bulk, like I'll spend a week and do, 10 or 15 of these, and then I'll spend a week doing something else, like the granny square bags. because when I do it that way, after I've done it once or twice, I can just pick it up and just do it without having to look at the pattern, and it just makes things go a lot quicker. Thank you for all the likes. I'm working on round 2 out of 4 of the head here. And let me count this round. So you can see here, I'll show you how your stitches will kind of shift. If I can look at it backwards. So this is my marked stitch, and this is my marked stitch, and this is the stitch that I stitched into it. If this is the stitch that I stitched into, marked stitch, stitch, it would go up to this way. So you would actually count on a diagonal. Like going this way. You would actually count on a diagonal. I actually have the bigger pattern available on Ravelry and Etsy. It's Catch of the Day drawstring fish bag or something like that. But if you go through my TikTok videos, you'll see I actually make them and line them, and they are pretty big. They're maybe about, I should pull one out. They're maybe about a foot tall, so they're maybe about 12 inches, 15 inches tall. And then I use a piece of cotton twill strapping in hardware to make the shoulder strap, and the shoulder strap's adjustable. But yeah, I'll pull one of those out eventually. But yeah, you can find the bigger pattern. I did do the bigger pattern. It's a little bit finicky, I will tell you that. It's one of those patterns that even when I do it, that's one of those patterns that I still have to look at, even if I'm doing 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. And I will also tell you that if you purchase the pattern, use your stitch markers. Use a lot of them when you get to the top, to the head part, because there's like chevrons around the cow. There's like chevrons around the cowl, right at the bottom of the head. I'll show you. And the chevrons sometimes can be finicky because I work them in a round. And when you work your chevrons in a round, it kind of shifts stitches. So I use my stitch markers when I'm working that pattern, and I put a stitch marker at the top of every chevron, and at the middle bottom of every chevron, and then as I work around, I just move my stitch marker accordingly, and that's how I keep track of it. Because I can't tell you how many times I've done the pattern and ripped it out, because who can count? Alright, let's see. 2, 3. This is my 1, 2, 3. I think this is my last round. And then we're going to do an eyelet round so that you can put a drawstring through this. And put some eyes on them. But I don't think I have a link to that pattern. I have the link to the shop site where I have some done, but I do know that if it's Catch of the Day drawstring fish bag, and I do have it on Etsy and on Ravelry. I should, oh, maybe I do have I think I do have a link to that, to the Etsy one in my link tree if you go to my bio. And you can see this is a good stash buster because I've barely used like any of this. I could probably get a second one of these out of that ball. You're welcome very much. Okay, so after my 4th round here, and I never did count. So this is my 1, 2, 3. Is that right? 1, 2, 3. Okay, I have one more round to do with this, and I'm going to count it. So bear with me. 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, it's only 40 stitches, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. That can't possibly be right. Because it says I should have 40 stitches. Do I really only have 30 stitches around? If so, I'll make it work anyway. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 31. Oh, I did. I said, see what I did wrong. When I went around my chain stitches, so I'll show you how, like, if you make a mistake on something like this, how you can just fix it. I did my 3 single crochet in each of my chain loops, but I didn't single crochet in my single crochets. So, in between my chain loops. So that's how I ended up with 30 stitches instead of 40 stitches, but we're going to make it work anyway because it still looks good. And it's your piece of art and your project, so you can decide whether you want to frog it or whether you just want to keep going. So my eyelet rounds for the drawstring. So I'm going to join this before I start my drawstring, just to make the round even. Because if I don't join it, you have where the stitch is higher than the rest of the stitches on the head. So since I'm finished with this part and I want to start a new section, I don't want this height here. I want it to pull down to be the same as the rest of the round. So I will, at the end of that round, just take and pull a slip stitch, and it will pull it down to the round to make it. You might be able to see a little bit better. You'll pull it down to the round so that you don't have the height there. You just have your stitches going in your round. So now for my eyelet stitches, is going to be chain 2, counts as the first double crochet. I do have to read it because I haven't done this pattern in a while. Again, for those of you that are just joining us, we are making a little dice bag that looks like a fish. And we're almost done. We're at the top. So I have to read this here. Let's see. Eyelet round for the drawstring. Chain 2 stitches. Oh, that should be a double crochet. So chain 2, counts as the first double crochet in the next stitch, and then I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to skip 2 stitches, and I'm going to do 2 more double crochets. And I'm going to repeat that around. So I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and then I'm going to do 2 double crochets. Whoops, not in the same stitch. Did 2 double crochets. I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to skip the next 2 stitches, and I'm going to double crochet in the next 2 stitches. Same, chain 2, skip 2, double crochet in the next 2. If you don't want your eyelets to be if you don't want your eyelets to be quite that tall, you can use a half double crochet instead of a double crochet there. And we'll see how this works out here with my 30 stitches, since I totally misread that yesterday. Talking too much. And if you wanted your eyelets bigger at the top, I mean, you could add 3 stitches and skip 2. It's up to you, but they're just little dice bags, so you don't really need a gigantic opening for it. 2, and that works out that I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to skip those 2, and yes, I know that this is my slip stitch, but that's fine. It works out. And then I'm going to slip stitch to the top here. So slip stitch in the next double crochet. In the chain 2 space, I'm going to work a single crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 3 picot, chain 1, and a single crochet. So I'll show you, easier than you think. So in the next one, I'm going to work a single crochet. I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to work a double crochet. I'm going to do a chain 3 picot, however you want to pronounce it. So I'm going to chain 3. So I did my single, chain 1, double, and then I chain 3 for my picot. And then to join my picot, I'm going to come down, get my yarn out of the way. So 1, 2, 3 chains, and this is the front of my double crochet. I'm going to come down through that first stitch of that double crochet and through that bar that's right there beside it. So I would come down to join my picot. I would come down through this stitch here and this bar and this bar here. Just that first, whoops, just that first top bar of the double crochet. Did I get that right? Oh no, I missed that. Hold on. There it is. This is the stitch, and that's the bar. So you would come down and you would slip stitch right into there. So you would bring your hook around. I'll show you. So you would bring your hook around. There's your double crochet. There's your chain 3. And you would bring your hook down into the top front loop, into the front loop, and into that first bar that's on the side there, like that. And you would just slip stitch through that. So you would just slip stitch through that. So you have your single crochet, your chain 1, your double crochet, your chain 3, and you slip stitch to the top of your double crochet. And you're going to chain 1 again, and you're going to single crochet. And that's going to give you like a little pointed eyelet at the top of each, or little pointed decorative scallop at the point of each one of your eyelets. So now I'm actually just going to slip stitch between the 2 double crochets. So the 2 double crochets here, I'm going to I just slip stitched between them, and I'm going to go to the next eyelet over, and I'm going to do my single crochet. I know I'm off camera way too much. Thank you very much for all the likes. I'm going to do my single crochet, chain 1, double crochet. These are all American terms. Chain 3. You can chain 1 there too if you don't want the point quite so big. And then I'm going to bring it down through the front loop and the bar that's right next to it. And I'm going to pull those stitches together to make a picot. And then I'm going to chain 1. I'm going to single crochet. And then I'm going to slip stitch between, right between the two double crochets that are there. So you can see it starts to make the top of the bag a little bit more decorative. So I'm going to work my way around here. If anybody wants to see that again, just holler. I wish you guys could like shout at me so that I could like hear you guys. But as I work my way around here, I will double check to make sure that who's making comments and who wants something answered. So I have 3 of them done. And the reason for the chain 1 after the single crochet is because you need to, I didn't want to make, before and after the double crochet, I'm going from a single crochet to a double crochet, so you're actually doubling the height of the stitch. And if you don't add that chain 1 after the single crochet, it'll kind of all bunch together and kind of get smushed because you don't have the height. So you want to make sure you give yourself that height. And again, I'm going to slip stitch between those 2, single crochet, chain 1 to give me the height for my double crochet, do my double crochet, my chain 3 picot. I'm going to come down through that stitch there and just slip, do another chain to give me the height that I need to get back down to that double or to the single. And you can see it working around, and it gives you that little pointed decorative edge there. And then I'm going to slip through stitch through this one. Next I'm going to do the eyes. Actually, next I'll just, because eyes are a pretty easy thing to do. Next I'll show you how you can like really easily line this bag because it's so small. It really doesn't take much. And you don't have to be fancy about it. It's just a little bag. If it were bigger, it would be harder to do it the way that I'm going to show you because it would end up bulky. But the way I'm going to show you how I'm going to line this bag is not going to end up bulky at all because there's really not that much. I mean, it's not that big around, so you won't end up with as much bulk at the bottom. But you can see we're almost done. Slip stitch between the 2, and this is my last one. And then I will do like an invisible join for this, just so that you can't see it. So that's the end of it. Then I'm going to take this and I'm going to cut it. And I'm just going to pull it up. So I took it and I cut it and I pulled it up, and I'll show you how I'm going to do the invisible join for it. Thread the needle, and then I'll get into showing you, thank you very much, and I'll get into showing you how easy it is to line that bag. So when you do your invisible join, it's hard. I know you guys are looking at everything backwards here. So am I when I try to look in the camera. This is the stitch, the next stitch that you would typically slip stitch into to end your round. So I want to cover this stitch with a fake stitch. So I'm going to skip it and go into the next stitch. This is the stitch that you would slip stitch into. And I want to cover it with a fake stitch. So I'm going to go in from the front to the back, and I'm going to pull this around, and it makes like the first loop. And then I'm going to go back exactly where it came out of. The camera takes a minute to exactly where it came out of, and I'm going to slide the needle down the back of my work. And you can see when you pull it, it makes like a false stitch on top of it so that you can't really see where it's joined. And then I would take it and I would flip it over, and I would knot it somewhere on the back side and pull my stitches in, and that way you wouldn't be able to see the knot. And I'm actually going to weave this down through the double crochet that's there first to kind of make it look like the stitch. Get this out of the way. So I'm going to take my, and I'm going to weave it down that double crochet into the part of the bag, because we're going to line it from here down. We're not going to line where the eyelets are. So you're not going to see down here. So this down here is where I'm going to choose to make a little knot. I can go down even a little bit further if I wanted. And then I'm going to make my knot, and I usually do like a chain 2 knot, chain 2 and pull it up, but this is pretty much the same thing. So I'm going to just loop it through, loop it through, loop it through one more time, and pull it tight. So you can see where I've knotted it. I now have a false stitch up here. I now have the false stitch up here so that you can't tell where the knot is. And I've dragged and woven my stitch down to here and knotted it down here where you're never going to see that knot because of the lining. And then I'm just going to weave it through a few more stitches just to hold that tail in place. The tail of the yarn, not the tail of the fish. You can, if you want, when you weave it through, put a little drop of glue underneath that knot, but you're really not going to have to. It's not going to make a difference. So let me cut that off, and I'll show you we have our bag. Obviously, since I missed some stitches, the top of the bag would be just a little bit wider, because the top of the bag is made so that it's flares out a little bit, and mine's not going to just flare out a little bit. So, you know, unless you know the pattern, and I've said this before, unless you know the pattern, or unless you're somebody that crochets all the time, there is no, even if you are somebody that crochets all the time, unless you know this pattern, you would never know that I missed stitches on the top part of this bag and that it was supposed to flare out a little bit further. You would never know that, ever. So, I mean, sometimes, yes, I will be crazy and frog things. Other times, like this, when I know I can get away with it and it's going to look just as good and it's going to be just as functional, I will just leave it that way, which is what I did. And I'm going to take my stitch marker out, my bobby pins. I just use some elastic cording and a cord stop, but I'm going to show you an easy way that you can line this bag. So let me move this down. Thank you very much for the likes. I'm actually going to go get my drawing board again so that I can, so give me 1 second. Take a sip of coffee. How is everybody this morning? Everybody's liking, everybody's watching, and I'm just kind of sitting here chattering away. How is everybody today? It should be another nice day. It was beautiful yesterday here. Thankfully, it was in the 60s, I think. I was very grateful for it. I'll try not to slurp so you can't hear my slurping in my earpiece. But yeah, it was a beautiful day. We had a tree cut down in my yard, and they haven't been able to get over here in a few days. What they have been able to do is make a mess of my yard when they do come over, because all that's done is rain and snow and melt and rain and snow and melt. And I have these, I don't know, it's a friend of ours, and he sells the wood to the campers in the summer. So to cut down a tree for him, and he's gotten a lot of references from us. So, and he'll come over, he'll cut the tree, and my husband goes out and helps him do all that work. His wife comes. I usually come, but I was told I have to take it easy for a couple months. But he'll come then, and he'll cut it all up, and he'll take it, and he'll split it all at his place, and then he'll sell it for firewood. So he's still getting paid. He's getting some help. The 3 months that I have to take off and take it easy, because usually I would be out there like during the day while everybody's working, and I would be doing some more cleanup. But I had hip number 2 replaced in January, and the last time I went for my appointment, he said, come on, you can't take it easy for a few months. I'm like, how many months? 6. I'm like, what? So I said, I'll compromise. I'll give you 3 months. I think it was 3 months after the last one, and I was out digging dirt. So 3 months should be good. That's what I figured. And that was January. Yeah, I got a few more days. I have to go see him tomorrow, so I'll see what he says. But I won't be here tomorrow. I am going to show you how to line this bag. I'm just going to... Did you get to my storage for the round nose puppets? I actually found the pattern for the rounder nose puppets, and I do have that one. So I have the pointed nose sock puppet, just the basic sock puppet. I have the rounder nose, just basic sock puppet. I have both of those up on my website. No, because I'm lazy and I don't feel like sitting out there and going through all my bins, because every time I put something in the garage, it kind of like magically moves so that something else can appear. So every time I go out there, things are everywhere and it takes me forever. So of course not. It is on my list though. On my phone, I have a to-do list that is like the little widget in the front. So as soon as I turn my phone, yeah. As soon as I get rid of something and clean it out, somebody, I don't know, the Magic Garage Shed Fairy puts something else in it. I don't know. So all my stuff's in one corner. I just have to go through them. I probably have about 10 bins out there. Yeah, I do. Probably too much. That's one of the reasons why I only do like an hour and a half on here in the mornings, because at an hour and a half point, I have to get up and walk around. Like it bothers me if I sit too long. But I'll tell you what, I did the first one I did was 5 years ago. It was the best thing I ever did. Like I could not walk, I could not function. When they finally did it, it was like amazing. I couldn't wait. I could not wait to get the second one done. So after 5 years, I knew it was going, and I knew it was getting bad to the point where they could probably do it. And my mother laughed at me because she would come up to visit, to stay in camp around where I live, and I would go out and I would make sure I got my 10,000 steps in. She's like, oh my God, you can barely walk. Why are you trying to get all your steps in? And I had told her because... Oh, I certainly will. he's over there. He's nice and calm. I gave him his peanut butter. He's been out a few times. He's got his bowl of food. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. I certainly will. I know Sir Charles there has his following as well. Well, my mother laughed at me. She's like, why do you keep pushing yourself? I said, because I'm going to make sure when I go to this appointment that it's bad enough that they're just going to do it. And sure enough, when I got there, it was bad enough that they just did it. So I was really, really happy. The wintertime was the best time to do it. We would go to like Walmart or Lowe's or Home Depot or places like that. And I would do laps and, do my exercises at home. And by the time the summertime comes, I can go out and do all the crazy things like cut down and clean up trees like I like to do. And run around with my mother, who runs around faster than me sometimes, and she's 20 years older than me. But, all right, let me grab my board. I'll show you how I line this bag. Sorry for the slurping. Again, it is the fish bag, and you can always go back, because when I'm done, I will go back. I'm just getting my board. I will go back and I will upload all these lives to YouTube, and I do put in the descriptions what we did for the day so that you can go back and kind of flip through the video and watch the parts that you want and skip me chattering away about things like moving and getting the hip replaced and crap like that. Getting up to feed my dog peanut butter, which I haven't had to do. I've been on top of it. I wake up, I get my dog settled, I get myself settled, I make my coffee, I'm good. And I was actually ahead of the game. Okay, so we're going to line this bag, and I will tilt my camera down. So I'm sorry if I can't see you. And I would typically use my pinking shears. And don't mind it's a drawing board. So my daughter decided, she's 17, decided that it needed to be drawn on. Oh, they're actually little birds. I did not even realize that. And I don't know, you guys are probably all my age. I'm going to tell her there needs to be a third bird there. It's got to be 3 little birds. But how cute is that? I did not even realize she did that. Okay, anyway. So I would typically use my pinking shears, but I'm going to open my fabric up. And I will make sure that you can see this, I promise, when I get myself situated here. And I am going to make it super, super simple for myself. And I'm going to fold it so the right sides are together. And I am going to ignore this up here because I'm going to cut that off. But I'm going to fold it so the right sides are together. And I'm going to lay my bag. Let's see if I can get it down a little bit further. Okay, so I'm going to lay my bag right on top of it. So where I had said that that thought just left. Oh, where I had said that we're not going to line the eyelets. I mean, you could line all the way up to the eyelets and put grommets in your fabric if you wanted to, but I don't. Because I typically have, other ways that you can, like the bigger fish bags. I have the strapping for the material, for the shoulder strap, but this is just a little trinket bag, so it's not going to hold a lot of weight. So I'm not going to worry about having it, about these eyelets stretching too much. So I'm going to take my bag, and I'm going to lay it here on my fabric. And I'm just going to, and you see I have it folded. So I'm going to take this fold, and I'm going to move this fold over a little bit so that I've got, and I'm going to make sure it's even all the way down. I'm getting there. I'm going to make sure I have a little bit of room around the bag You don't need a ton of room around the bag, just enough to stitch. So that still might be a little bit, I don't know if you can see that edge there, that still might be a little bit too wide. If you're stitching it on a machine, I'm just going to run a stitch up it just to show you. So I'm going to make that just a little bit smaller. Make sure I've got it even all the way down, and because you're basically going to cut out like a rectangle, but you're going to use the fold. Yeah, I think I'm making it just a little, I probably shouldn't, but I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller. It does not matter if it is perfect, because your fish comes down this way anyway, so it doesn't matter if it's absolutely perfect. So I'm going to basically just cut this and then show you how to cut the size. So I know that I'm not lining the tail because the tail are just 2 tail fins. I have my extra space up here. I want to leave a little bit of extra space below this. I want to leave a little bit of extra space below this, just so I have like a seam allowance here. I have this much space from here to here because I'm going to cut this off, the edge off. Here to here, that'll give me enough to roll my edge to do a like a hem, and I'm just going to cut this. Like I said, I would typically use pinking shears, and I would usually just do this on the machine, but I'm just going to cut that rectangle out. This is the part up here. This is the part up here where you want to make sure you have enough of the seam allowance, because this is going to be the widest part. So, and I do, because I'm just going to make a small seam allowance. Let me fold my fabric, and I'll show you how you can stitch that together to make just the simplest, literally the simplest of linings, and then you can stitch it in there. So, do I have a real needle? That is the question. That's sort of a real needle. I have all kinds of needles everywhere. This one might work. I'm just going to stick it there for a second. I'm just going to use some off-white thread. And I do like to double thread. So I'm going to use a bigger piece, which that should be enough for the side of it. And it will not take me long to do this. One of the things that I got in the habit of doing is when I'm threading my needles that are small like this, I use a little bit of chapstick on my lips because it kind of holds those frays in. And you don't really want to push the thread through, you want to push the needle onto the thread. And I'll show you why I like to double thread. So I'm going to take this as soon as I get this done, and I'm going to cut off this top edge because I don't want this top edge here. It doesn't need to be here. Again, when I would do these, I would, but you can, here, let me show you this neat little tip. So when you see the edge of your fabric like this, and you see these dots and these numbers, these dots and these numbers here are actually colors that will correspond, back a little bit, these are actually colors that will correspond with the prints on your fabric. So if you notice, they all kind of match the prints on your fabric. So if you wanted to use 2 different fabrics, you could use these little dots here to take your swatch and go find your different fabrics, or instead of, anyway, it's just a little tip. I don't know why, if I've got my fabric in my hand, I can do it, but that's what these little dots are. They're actually the colors that match, that they use during the printing process. So, now I've got my rectangle that I'm going to use as my lining, and I'm going to make this super simple. So I'm just going to line up my edges And again, usually I would do this on a machine. And this is why I like to, I'm going to go up and down. So this is why I like to double thread my needle, because when I double thread my needle, I don't have to start with a knot. I can just loop my thread through there, through the loop at the end of the needle, and start it. And I'm just going to take this and I'm going to do a running stitch. And you can add, it's easy, unless you have it ironed. I'm just going to do it this way, but you can do a running stitch if I hold it this way, all the way up the side. So I'm just going to go in and up. I don't know if you can see that, in and up. I'm not going to worry about it being perfect, because you're never going to tell. In and up. If it starts to gather a little bit, that's alright, because when you get to the top, you can always pull it out. Boy, I haven't done any embroidery in a long time. I had started like a book, and I'm going to do it like, I'm just going to do like a pinch method here, so I can do more than one running stitch at a time. So you can see I'm almost up to the top of that. And to do that, I would just go down, pinch it and up, pinch it and down, pinch it and up and down, and I would just keep doing that. And you can get, I can probably get about 10 stitches on that needle before I pull it through. And I can get my stitches a little, I get my stitches a little bit smaller and a little bit more uniform when I do it that way. And then you just pull all of them through. And again, if it starts to gather, just yank it out. But I'm just showing you like a crude way that you could easily line this and not have to worry about having a machine or doing anything special with it. So this is going to be the end of it. And I'm going to go all the way up. Even though I am going to hem the top, I'm still going to go all the way up. I might have enough thread on there to go all the way back down. Okay, now what I'm going to do with this is, because when I open this up, and I would do the same thing if I was using a machine. So when I open this up like this, you have the seam part that comes up. Well, I really don't want to see the seam part that comes up through my bag. And this is why I said sometimes it's easier to iron it. So I'm going to come back down, and I'm going to have my piece open, so I'm not stitching through this part. I'm going to fold my seam allowance down like this, and make sure that you're not sewing through the back part of that you're only sewing through this part here. And I'm going to do simple hand stitching methods. And I'm going to pick this up again, and then again making sure you can actually stick your hand in there if you want. I'm going to lay this seam flat, and I'm going to do another running stitch all the way down just to hold this seam flat, just so it's not poking out through the I'm just going to pinch it and do it like pinch method, quilter's method. And you can see I'm not even making teeny tiny stitches. I'm making probably 1/8 inch, not quite 1/4 inch stitches. And you just pull it through, and that holds that seam down. You can see it holds the seam down so that the seam isn't going to stick up and stick through the mesh part of the bag. And again, typically I would do this on my machine, but and I would probably, depending on my mood, sometimes I'll just turn my work and just go all the way down. Sometimes I will zigzag over that edge there, but I'm just, again, trying to show you a crude way that you could do this, that you don't need to have the machine and the tools. You just need a piece of fabric and a needle and thread. So I'm just, again, doing a running stitch. I did my seam, and now I'm doing a running stitch down my seam to hold it flat against the tube, I guess you want to call it. And then the next part's going to be the fun part. So I'm almost done with this. But you just want to, I mean, you can get fancy. You can alternate where your stitches come in and out of just to make sure you're covered with your seam. If you're doing it hand sewing, I'm not really, I have to turn it, my hand's not going to fit through there. So again, you can see where my seam pops up here, but I have my seam stitched down here so that it lays flat while it's inside the bag. And you can put a little fray check on that edge if you want, if you don't pink them, but I would typically, when I cut my fabric, use my pinking shears. So pull it through, I'm almost at the bottom. And I did it from the bottom to the top and then the top to the bottom for a reason. And that's because I'm just going to, again, make a crude knot at the very bottom, and nobody's going to see it because it's the bottom, which I guess doesn't really matter because you're going to roll that hem for the top. So that's my top, my bottom, whichever you want to do, it doesn't really matter. And I'm just going to wrap this around 3 times. If you wrap it around your needle more than 3 times, it's not really going to stick a knot. And I'm going to move it over and I'm going to knot it one more time. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so now we have, and I'm just going to cut it off. You can put a drop of glue there if you want to make sure your knot doesn't come out. You can back stitch if you're using a machine. So now I have like just a basic tube, right? And my seam lays flat without pressing it. So there was no ironing there. It was just simply putting it together. Now I'm going to take, I know one side this was a little bit wider than the other, so when I'm looking at it, I know that when I cut it, not on purpose, but it just did, like I said, it doesn't really, it just can be crude. I've got one side that's a little bit bigger, it just kind of happened that way, and one side that's a little bit smaller, so I'm going to take the smaller side and I'm going to use that as the tail side of the bag. And once again, I'm going to, where'd all this thread come from? So once again, I'm going to, and this is actually going to be a fun part. Mystic got a phone call. Oh, so all I did was take it and pinch it together and make a seam. And I did like a running stitch down the seam. And then I did not fasten off my thread. I just took the thread and pushed that seam to the side and did like a running stitch down to hold the seam flat so the seam isn't like poking out the sides of the mesh bag. So when you turn it this way, I mean, you can see it's really crude, but nobody's going to notice that because of the prints. But I would typically do that on a machine. But so next we're going to do, and all I did was cut a rectangle. Just like this. I folded it over. This is my fold. And then I did my, so this is how we're going to do the bottom. And this is why I say it's like super easy. You're not going to need a ton of thread for this. I'm still going to double thread it for a couple reasons, because that'll make it a little bit stronger, number one. And number two, I don't have to tie the knot and worry about the knot at the beginning of my stitch. Okay, so the bottom part is going to be easier than you think. So you can do the bottom part one of 2 ways. You can pinch it together and work it, which I'm going to do because it's going to be quicker and easier. Or you can do your running stitch all the way around the outside and then pull it together. So And to be honest, since this lays flat anyway, and you kind of want it to lay flat, I'm just going to do it this way. So here's my seam, and I'm actually going to fold it so my seam is like that, so it kind of runs up the back or the side of the fish and not on one of the sides. So it'll run up this way instead of this way, so you have less of a chance of like the seam edge. And again, this is just a crude way to do it so that you can do it without a machine or without anything. And you're going to, this is my bottom, right? Yes, this is my bottom. Doesn't have to be perfect. And again, why I like to use 2 strands, because I don't have to knot it. I can just slip it up through that loop and pull it, and it's secured. And then I'm going to, about 1/4 of an inch down, I'm going to make a running stitch. Oh, I'm off camera. I wish you guys could shout at me. I'm just going to make it like a simple running stitch. And I'm going to pull it. And I'm just going to keep going all the way across with like a simple running stitch. Doesn't have to be super straight. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm doing here, but I'm just kind of trying to do all my stitches together, so pinching it and pulling it through. But it is just basically up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. So it's just basically, you can see that, just a simple running stitch. It's just I'm doing multiple stitches at a time. It's almost like a quilting, hand quilting method. So when I get to the end, I'm not going to worry about this because this is going to be hidden in the bottom of the part of the tail that has, in the bottom part of the tail where you see there's solid stitches there. This bottom part's going to be hidden in it, so you're not going to see it. But now what you're going to do, since you did all those running stitches, is you're just simply going to pull them tight. And after you've pulled it tight, you can either put a couple stitches in there to hold it, I just looped 1 stitch in there just to hold it tight, and then I'm actually just going to pick up one of the pleats that are here, and I'm going to tie my knot around it. 2, 3, pull my needle out, put a second knot up there, you can, and I'm going to leave this tail a little bit longer because I'm just going to tuck it back inside. And that's it, that's the bottom of the bag. I mean, that is literally how easy. You can put a little drop of glue on that knot if you want to put a drop of glue on that knot. However you want to do it, leave a long tail, leave a long tail. But I mean, like, that's literally it. We just gathered the bottom of the bag. So now you see we have a bag. And then, I don't know if you guys want to sit and watch me do this whole inside of it, but I would take this, string everywhere, and I would fold it down once, and I would fold it down twice. And you can stitch this or you can iron this, I mean, however you want. You don't even have to fold it down twice. You can just fold it down once, and it's not going to make a difference. So if I took my bag and I looked at it, I want this folded part to be just below the eyelets, and I want this part here to be down as far as the tail. So I'm going to unfold this just a little bit. And you're not going to see that raw edge, so you don't even have to double fold it. If it's a little bit bigger, that's fine. It'll stretch the bag out a little bit, but it won't stretch the bag out too much, and it'll actually allow you some give in those mesh stitches so that you can fit some stuff in there. But I'm just going to take that and I'm just going to pull that up just a little bit more. Now I'm going to look at my bag again and see. That's the way I did it. Make sure it's the size that I want it. So this is going to come down to the tail. Now it's a little bit too big. This should come up right beyond underneath the eyelets. And actually that looks pretty good. So I am now just going to take this, and this is how I like to do it. I like to turn my piece inside out, my crocheted piece inside out. I'll show it to you this way, that way it's a little bit easier to understand. So you take your bag piece that you have, right, your bag piece that you have, and you're going to put it down inside your bag so that you have your lining where you want to line it, and you can use some pins to hold that. I'm not sure where all my pins, oh, my pins are in my yarn bowl sitting on my table. So you're just going to push that down inside of your fish. You can see I'm getting it down in there. And you can kind of grab where you gathered to make sure it's down inside that tail there. And once you've grabbed where you gathered, where it's inside that tail, you can then take this whole thing. Make sure you don't pull the lining out. Make sure you keep the lining down by the tail. And it's easier if you flip it inside out like this, because you still have it down here at the tail. And once you've flipped it inside like that, you can kind of see how you can adjust the top, where you want the top to be right below the eyelets. And again, it does not have to be perfect, because nobody's going to look at that bag and say that's not perfect. They're going to stick their trinkets in it and pull them out. So again, just to do this, I would take my, that one white string there, left over from my bunnies. It just wants to stay there. So I will take my thread. I tend to call everything string. We are lining a fish bag. These are dice bags, so they're not very big. I'll show you a picture. We did the whole bag. If you want to see the tutorial for the whole bag, it's yesterday's and today's live that I will later have totally uploaded to YouTube. But that is what we were making, and I'm showing you how you can crudely line it, that it doesn't have to be perfect. And that's what it would look like when it's done and when the drawstring is together. So now I would take this and just find a point. And I like to take the ridges. You can see the ridges from my single crochets right here underneath. I like to use those loops. I'm losing my voice. And yeah, I know I'm using them with white thread, but, and again, I double my thread so that I can just eliminate one of my knots. So I would just take it and just go to the next loop and go through my lining and just through that loop in the back. Go to the next one, through that lining, through that loop in the back. You can make your stitches smaller if you want. You can make them bigger if you want. But again, I'm going just to the next one, and you can pull these tighter because it's just a hand stitched and through that loop in the back. I think this will be the first project I totally finished, maybe. Not really. I don't have the eyes on them. Ooh, which reminds me, I'm going to not do all the way around this so that I can put my eyes on, because you would need to put your eyes on before you put your lining on. But I'll do halfway around it just to show you. And I'll just do it all. I'll just rip it out if I need to put my eyes on. You could also, if you forgot to put your eyes on, manage to get wiggle your fingers down in through the mesh part of the bag. But I think I'm almost done. Was that Facebook telling me that or not Facebook, yikes. See, and you can take that stitch and that whole stitch, because it's just simple running stitch, well actually you can pull it a little bit tight once you have gone all the way around it. I am almost all the way around, so I might as well just finish. And again, I'm just going up through, that one. I'm just going up through the loop underneath the stitch on the couple more stitches here, and I'm all the way down, and I'll flip them back right side out, and then I'll show you my drawstring, which is basically just some elastic cording and a cord stop. Okay, got about 5 more stitches here to do. Because you can figure we only did 30. I only did 30 stitches around, so I only have 30 stitches to go around the outside of my bag. And you can use thread that matches. You can use thread that is contrasting to give it a little bit of pop if you wanted to make it look a little bit different. I'm almost at the end here, which is a good thing because I'm almost at the end of my thread. Make sure you don't split your stitch. Make sure when you're going through this loop here, you get through the whole loop with your needle and you don't split it. It just makes it look neater. And I only have 2 more stitches to do here, and then I'm going to knot it off. And that would be how you would just do like a simple lining, and I am just really just going to knot it. So you don't have to have like terribly super skills to line a bag. I mean, you can line your bags crudely, and this you can actually take and run down in between the lining. In between the lining and the fish itself, you can run your end through if you want. Bring it back out down a little bit further and cut it off. And you can see, even if you do it with a contrasting thread, you could do it with like a really contrasting thread. Like you could do it like red so it looked like it was done on purpose, or green or blue so it looked like it was done on purpose. So now you've got your bag totally lined, and you flip it back inside out. And like I said before, it's going to make the scales look like a little bit colorful if you use something, or if you use just a plain solid contrast, you'll see the plain solid contrast out there. And if you look, your bag is now totally lined. And then this is the super simple part, because I use cording, and I think I use some green cording for this. This is all tangled because my grandson and I were playing with it the last time we used it, because we made little frog bags. Our little frog bags are pretty easy. There you go. I wish I could look at you guys too. Alright, so now I'm going to take my giant needle, if I can figure out what I did with it here. La la la. Oh, I know, I stuck it here. There it is. Gets lost behind my pencils. I'm going to take my large darning needle here, and I'm just going to slide it over top of my elastic thread, or my elastic cording, and I'm going to pick the side of the bag to start on, so that when you pull him up, he looks like he's hanging. So I'm going to take the side of the bag to start on, and I have even loops there. I'm just going to go in and out, in and out, in and out of my eyelets, in and out of my eyelets, and that's where I started. So I have my cording wrapped through all of my eyelets. I'm going to leave that on the needle for a reason, and it does not really need to be any bigger than the mouth of the bag. Maybe just a little so you can tie a knot in it. And then I'm going to take my cord stop. Oh yeah, absolutely. The glue I use is Aleene's Fabric Fusion. And you can see here where it says, I know it's backwards, permanent fabric adhesive. This is the glue that I use. I buy it in like the big bottles. I know that's sad. I use it so much that half the times the cap doesn't end up on it together. Or for the night, which, yeah, whatever. Just pick the glue out of it. Yeah, that's the glue I use. It has to say permanent fabric adhesive. If it says permanent fabric adhesive, you know that it's not going to come out in the wash. And I actually have done swatches. I think you guys were here when, some of you guys were here when I said that. I've actually done swatches where I've crocheted a swatch, and I've used different types of glue to glue things on. The glues that work the best were, believe it or not, the multi-temp, even like in a hot dryer. Like I threw it in with a load of towels, threw it in the dryer with a load of towels, and I threw my swatch in, and I had the different glues, and I had like a graph so I knew which one was which. This stayed. The Jewel-It was okay. It seemed like it was, if it wouldn't make it through a ton of washes. That's Jewel-It, Jewellit, Jewel-It. But this held like eyes on the best, and the multi-temp hot glue held them on pretty good. Actually, just as well as the other, as this did. But I like this better. I feel like it's just more permanent. E6000 worked well. But now I'm going to take this, and you can see if you take this cord stop and you push it, that's where you want your cord to be, through there. So I'm going to pull this piece through there because it was frayed, which is why I left it on my needle. So I pulled that piece through. I'll get there. I promise I'll get there. One of these days my fingers will work. Alright, so if you compress it again, you can slide that second part of that cord through there, and then you have both parts of your cord stop coming up through it. So when you push it, your cord stop, you can pull your drawstring tight, and that's what gives you the, and I would just tie a knot in this, and that's what gives you the fish look. And what we didn't do was, you know, of course you would put your eye on it first, and then your little fins there. But I really wanted to go over how you can just crudely line a bag. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can tell when you open this bag up. Should tie my knot in that before I. But you can tell when you open this bag up. This is as far as the crochet stretches, and that's why I do it inside out. You can't tell if it's a little bit bigger. You can't tell if it's a little bit smaller. You can barely see the stitching that's on it. And now you've got a bag that, even though it's made of mesh, and I do, when I make my bigger fish bags, I line them with a contrasting color, or I line them with a light denim, so that you can actually see the mesh squares kind of pop with the lining fabric underneath it. And again, before I finish up, I will tell you that if you just take a basic steamer, you can get them at the dollar store for like 10 bucks, a basic steamer, and you steam these, they will lay flat. And that's pretty much with any piece of crochet. If it curls like that, if you give it a good steam and just lay it flat, it will not curl anymore. But you got to give it, it's like the steam hits it. It's not just like the blocking, because you could get this wet and you could pull it out and block it, but you would have to keep it there and pull it out and block it. But if you just steam it, it seems to loosen those fibers and do even just as good of a job. So yeah, that's our fish bag. You can follow along. I do have the pattern on Ravelry if you choose to, if you wanted to buy it instead. I do not have this one on my website. I do have both basic pointed nose sock puppet, and I like to put basic patterns on my website, because if you notice, when you go to look for basic things, like, okay, I want to make a basic, thank you very much. You know, basic things, like with the cows and the giraffes and the bunnies that I did, all that amigurumi starts with a basic pattern. So the basic doll pattern I have on my website, and I actually do, oh, you're welcome, I actually do have the accessory pieces for the doll. So I have the cow pieces, the giraffe pieces, and the rabbit ears, if you want to go through those. But when you're doing toys and things like that, you've got basic patterns. And it's really hard, because sometimes when you look for basic triangle, basic doll, basic something, you get like this elaborate something that you have to flip through a lot of. So my goal for the rest of the spring is try to get like basic patterns on there. So I do have the basic amigurumi doll. I don't think I have him here. Let me see. I don't have him right in front of me. But I can grab him. He's right here. Yikes. And I'll show you. And I'm going to take the rest of the day and I'm going to stitch my bunny bag together, because I'm so excited that I finally got all my bunnies done. Okay, so the basic doll pattern that I have on my website is a little smushed, but luckily polyfill-like is forgivable. So it's a basic doll. Looks like a gingerbread man. This basic doll you can take and make into the cow. It is the same doll. And I do have the pattern pieces for the ears and the nose and the snout. So I have the basic doll, and then I have the accessory pieces for the cow. I do love those dolls. So yeah, we did a cow from that basic pattern. We did a giraffe from that basic pattern. And I actually did a tutorial on these, some of my earlier lives. And again, it's the same pattern with the giraffe. We just extended the neck a little bit. We also did a bunny. Same exact body. This one's worsted weight. This one's blanket yarn. This is free on my website. So that's my goal, to get like basic patterns. The same with the puppets. I have two basic puppet patterns that I use that are mine, that I now have up on my website as well. The first one's like a pointed nose puppet, and it's just a basic pointed nose puppet. And then I have a basic round nose puppet. Right? Round nose puppet. And out of the round nose puppets, I make like animals like the unicorns. And out of the pointed nose puppets, I made things like foxes and sharks. I do have one of my lives on YouTube. They're my TikTok lives that I upload to YouTube. I actually go through this whole shark and show you how to make the three-dimensional teeth and do the short rows for the fins. But you can see if you've got a basic pattern, it's easy to do a lot of the other pieces that you want to be like finicky and picky with. So my goal is to try to get a lot of these basic patterns, and I'm going to try to do basic shapes too, because your circle is a basic shape. There's a basic formula for just about every circle that you're going to do. Whether you make a coaster out of it, whether you make the beginning of a head out of it, whether you make the beginning of an arm out of it, it's all basically going to be the same formula. Triangles are the same way. Most of us all know how to do the granny squares. Solid granny squares are the same thing. Like, it's hard to find that basic pattern just so you can turn it into what you want it to turn into. Does that make sense? So my goal is, so far I have the doll and I have the 2 basic puppet patterns up on my website. Thank you very much. And again, a lot of these I do as tutorials, like the bunny squares that I was working on. You can see some of those in my regular TikTok videos. I did do making motifs pop on granny squares, and those I have uploaded to YouTube as well, so you can go into there. It's Nifty Knots Talk, and you can see I have a ton of shorts, a couple of videos, and then a playlist that's Nifty Knots Talk that has all of these lives. So if you want to go back through and you want to pick and choose the pieces you want to watch, or if you want to look through the whole tutorial, you can skip ahead and you can pick just the pieces that you needed to see. Those, again, are free. They're not behind a paywall. They're just, go to my website, click on patterns, you'll see the different sections. But, I'm not going to complain if y'all want to go to my shop and shop. Who would? But the link to my YouTube channel, if you go to my bio, I have a link tree. The link to my YouTube channel is there. The link to the bigger fish bag is there. The link to my patterns on my web page are there. The patterns on my web page are free. Some patterns I have listed through Etsy and Ravelry. You can rewatch all these lives with everything that I've done, because some of these patterns, like the fish pattern that I just did, is a paid pattern, but I just sat and did the whole tutorial with you. So if you didn't want to pay for the pattern, you could watch it on YouTube and see the whole thing done. Between part 1 yesterday and part 2 today, we actually lined the bag. I stuck it over there. Then I got my other stuff. But, yeah, so I'm trying to get a lot of things going on. Trying to get things working for myself a little bit. And getting ready for my markets in the summer. And I really appreciate everybody that joined me today. Thank you very much. Again, if you want to rewatch the live, or if you missed anything and you really want to pull up some pieces, you can go through. I do put in the description some of the tutorials that I do and some of the explanations that I made. Like yesterday, you asked me how to repair the hole in the velvet yarn. And I did some of that, so I put that in the description so that you know that somewhere in that video, that's an hour and a half long, there is I go through how I would repair that if it fell apart on me. Simple things like that. But yeah, this is part 2 of the dice fish bag tutorial that I just stuck over there. I'll go grab it so you can see it. And then I'm going to, yikes. So that's what we did today. It's a picture of some of the other ones that I've done with different, oh, trust me, I don't overwork. this isn't work to me. This is like, I love to do this. So like, it's work to me is having to get up and move around, which I guess it is to everybody, but that's our fish bag that I didn't put eyes on. You can see it's just a little trinket bag, dice bag. You can make it with sport weight yarn and make it thinner, and it would be even smaller for dice. This one I made with worsted weight yarn, basically so you can see how the stitches worked. I certainly will not overdo it. Although I will tell you this, hips after 2 weeks, golden. Doesn't really bother you. Tomorrow, I will not be here tomorrow. I have an appointment tomorrow morning, so I will not be here tomorrow. I will be here Thursday and Friday. Because today's Tuesday, right? Yeah. So I won't be here tomorrow. I tried to come on Monday through Friday around 9:45 or so. But tomorrow I will not be here. I will be at my appointment. But I will be back on Thursday, and I'm not really sure what I want to do on Thursday. Because I'm hoping to get my bunny bag all finished, and I did tutorials on those already. If you guys are like flipping through my TikTok videos or looking at things, you can always send me a DM and say, hey, do you think you can do this for a live and explain this? And I'll be more than happy to respond. More than happy for ideas. So don't hesitate to you send me a message on TikTok and say, hey, next live you do, can you show us how to do this? And I'll have things a little bit prepared, because I have been trying to prepare a little bit more instead of just sitting here chattering away. So, again, I will see you Thursday. Oh, it should. Other than he tells me to behave myself. But, you know, what are you going to do? I will see you guys all on Thursday. Again, that was our fish dice bag that we made today. If you want to see that all over again, you can watch yesterday's and today's TikTok Live on my YouTube channel. And I will see you guys all on Thursday. Have a great day.